Mark and Emily were once the nightmare of every criminal organization in the world. On the surface, they looked just like an ordinary married couple. Gentle eyes, warm smiles. But beneath that image were two human weapons forged through hundreds of life-or-death missions. Terrorist cells, crime syndicates, lawless gangs, even cunning political elites. All had once been crushed by them without mercy. Anyone who looked at them the wrong way would end up in a hospital. Anyone who dared act recklessly would face a path of no return. It was as if they were born to stand side by side. A deadly duo created to shatter every dark force. They dismantled countless terrorist plots for one goal only: peace, safety, and the absolute trust the government placed in them. But those glorious days were now only distant fragments. Mark and Emily had stepped away from the battlefield. They chose a new life. A small house, 2 good children, a peaceful family far from the blood and bullets of the underworld. However, some things can never be buried forever. One mistake by the enemy pulled everything back into the light. A dangerous organization did not just target them, they went after their children. And even worse, they were planning to use a weapon the world had never seen before. A special chip. A digital key capable of accessing and controlling the entire global security network. With just a few clicks, whoever held that key could plunge an entire city into darkness, unlock floodgates and drown entire nations, manipulate nuclear arsenals and defense systems of global powers. If that key fell into the wrong hands, the world would descend into chaos. Behind it all was Badesa, a terrorist kingpin who once served as an agent of the Russian Federal Security Service. He had once sworn loyalty to ideals but was blinded by greed. He betrayed everything and everyone to become the most dangerous monster in the criminal underworld. He not only commanded an elite army of assassins but also held countless political secrets. He manipulated high-ranking officials. And now he possessed a weapon capable of destroying human civilization in the blink of an eye. Faced with an unprecedented threat, the CIA had no choice but to act. And the only ones capable of pulling off this impossible mission were the legendary duo, Mark and Emily. Mark had not even responded before Emily fell silent. She said nothing, but in her heart the decision was made. Just before that call, she had discovered she was pregnant. A sudden joy, a new chapter in their lives. But she could not share it with Mark. Peter's call came again. No hesitation. The order was clear. They had to leave that night. The target was Batasa's mansion in Brazil. On the surface it was just a party celebrating his son finally passing first grade after 3 years of failure. But in reality the mansion was a heavily guarded underground base. The CIA needed 2 pieces of biometric data to access the system protecting the superchip key: a fingerprint and a voice sample. Emily posed as a party guest. She appeared graceful, a hint of perfume, a sweet gaze, elegant steps. She approached Badesa with flawless charm. He greeted her politely and kissed the back of her hand. A brief contact, but enough to collect his fingerprint. Elsewhere at the party, Mark discreetly recorded Batasa's voice using a hidden device in his watch. Everything went smoothly, perfectly, moved up to the 2nd floor, and reached the special room where the secure box was kept. Emily calmly placed the fingerprint patch on the scanner. Mark activated the voice recording. The system verified the data. The metal door slowly opened. Inside was the high-tech security box. And within it, the superchip key that could change the fate of the entire world. Mark carefully retrieved the box. But before he could turn around, the alarm blared violently. They had been discovered. Without a moment's pause, Mark threw the first punch. The guard dropped instantly. Emily struck at the same time with a perfect shoulder throw. Mark and Emily sprinted down the emergency escape route, following the map Peter had provided. But at the last turn of the hallway, an old man and a child suddenly stepped out of the bathroom. Mark and Emily unleashed a series of swift close combat moves. Within seconds, both civilians were gently laid on the floor. They reached the parking lot. Mark opened the door of the prepared car. Emily jumped into the driver's seat. The engine roared to life. The car sped off like a storm into the neon night. Mark and Emily had already boarded a plane out of Brazil. Their next destination was New York. On the flight home, Emily sat quietly by the window. She turned to look at Mark, the man who was about to become the father of the child growing inside her. She whispered, "Will you be a father?" Mark turned to her with surprise but did not shy away. He nodded slightly and replied firmly, "If it's your child then it's mine too. No matter what, I will love it." Emily smiled with relief. But the moment lasted only a few seconds. A sudden wave of nausea struck her, the first sign of morning sickness. She rushed to the restroom, but the flight attendant said it was out of order. A sense of unease crept into her chest. She glanced around. Mark's eyes instantly turned sharp and alert. A passenger approached them unexpectedly, a gun in his hand. He aimed straight at Emily and barked, Hand over the key. Mark understood immediately. Mark pretended to hand over the key, but the moment the man reached for it, Mark grabbed a wine bottle from a nearby tray, smashed it into the man's face. Emily was wrestling with a co-pilot. He was strong, but she was faster. A swift spin. A perfect counterattack. One of the flight crew regained consciousness, reached for a fallen gun. He aimed at Emily and fired. Mark saw it just in time. He dove in. The bullet missed its mark and struck the pilot instead. The aircraft spun out of control. Sirens screamed. Red lights flashed. Alarms echoed. The sky tilted into chaos. Below them, a deep chasm waited. Emily screamed. Mark scanned the cabin. There was only one parachute. No time to think. He strapped it to Emily. She refused. She didn't want their child to grow up without a father. She clung to Mark. They jumped together. The wind howled. Fire blazed behind them. The plane's propeller snapped and scattered like blades across the sky. But the parachute opened. They landed safely. A miracle in hell. Mark gasped for air. Emily held her belly. They were alive. And the key remained intact in Mark's jacket. Mark grabbed Emily's hand. They fled the crash site. Behind them, the wreckage exploded into a pillar of black smoke. To the world, they were now dead. And in that lie lay their greatest opportunity. They vanished completely, became someone else, and began a new life. They changed their names and moved to a quiet suburb, rebuilt everything from scratch. 2 children were born in turn. Leo, the younger boy with a passion for technology. Ollie, the older sister, entering her rebellious years. But Emily could never fully relax. A constant unease lingered inside her. She feared the children might one day become perfect reflections of their parents. And once the old world found their trail, nothing would ever be peaceful again. Ollie grew more outspoken. She had a boyfriend. She was ready to kiss him in broad daylight. Mark watched from afar. A chill ran down his spine. Emily was deeply worried, but Ollie had no idea she was being watched. When she found out, she called home angrily, accusing her parents of invading her privacy. She shouted that she would not be coming home. That night, when Ollie did not return, Emily opened her daughter's laptop looking for clues. A message appeared on the screen, but it was password protected. She tried several times and failed. She was about to close it when she saw scribbled words on the back. "Silly mom." Emily typed it in. The screen unlocked. Her breath stopped as she read the message. Ollie had not gone to a study group. She was at a nightclub with her friends. Without a second's delay, Mark and Emily hit the road. When they arrived, the music was deafening. Lights flashed everywhere, the air thick with sweat and alcohol. They quickly found Ollie laughing with her boyfriend and friends. Emily walked up with a cold, furious face, then turned to the mustached boy with a threatening glare. "You, stay away from my daughter." But before they could leave, security blocked the exit. They were told they were too old to be in the club. Mark calmly tried to explain. "We just want to take our daughter home." The guards refused to listen. Emily snapped. She threw a powerful punch into his face. He collapsed. The rest rushed forward. Mark kicked. Emily hooked. Within moments, the guards lay unconscious on the floor. Ollie froze, unsure whether to feel proud or ashamed. She just wanted to disappear. Back home, Mark and Emily tried to explain, but Ollie shut the door in silence. Emily was furious. She needed to let it out. Mark said nothing. He handed her the gloves and stepped aside. Emily punched the sandbag again and again, her breath heavy, her shirt soaked. The next morning, just as everything seemed to have settled, a guest appeared uninvited at their door. It was Peter, the former boss Mark and Emily once trusted with their lives. Mark was stunned to see him. He had no idea how Peter had found their current location. Peter wasted no time. He got straight to the point with a cold question. "Where is the superchip key?" Mark and Emily answered as if they had prepared for this moment. "It was destroyed in the plane crash. Nothing survived." Peter did not believe it. His voice sharp as a blade. "That box cannot be destroyed. We searched the entire site. Found nothing." But before he could say another word, a bullet pierced through the window and struck Peter in the chest. He collapsed instantly. More bullets rained through the shattered glass. The entire house trembled as gunfire ripped into the walls. They crawled quickly to the basement. Mark opened a hidden cabinet. Inside was a backpack prepared long ago. Mark and Emily were inside. They had used a classic misdirection. The decoy car had bought them just enough time. The chase began immediately. Every turn was tight. The assassins stayed glued to their tail. The front was blocked. The back was pinned. No clear road to escape. Emily turned the wheel hard. The car smashed through a garden fence. Trees snapped. Iron gates flew into the air. She kept turning harder. The car plunged into a roadside ditch. But they had lost their pursuers. Mark breathed heavily. Emily did not smile. Her voice firm and urgent. "We need to go to England." Now, once they were sure they had shaken off the assassins, Mark and Emily sped toward the school. Mark and Emily burst into the schoolyard. They shouted their children's names. Ollie and Leo turned around confused. In front of stunned classmates, Emily said only one thing: "Get in the car, now." Ollie was shocked, not understanding what was happening. As the plane began to move, Leo tilted his head. "Mom, I thought Grandma was dead." Emily looked at her son. "I'm sorry for lying to you. For not telling you sooner. Your grandmother is still alive. But she abandoned me when I was little. She sent me to a spy training school and then cut off all contact. I never wanted to speak of her again. Because to me she died that day." The plane landed in England. While Emily was presenting her passport, the facial recognition system scanned her face. At a small roadside bus station, the family bumped into an old man. His luggage spilled onto the ground. Mark quickly bent down to help. Emily seized the moment to lift his car keys from his coat. Without a word, they drove off in the stolen car. The vehicle was old and soon ran low on fuel. Mark pulled into a rest stop to refuel. While he filled the tank, Emily went inside to buy snacks for the kids. None of them realized that stopping here was a fatal mistake. Their pursuers had found them. Leo and Ollie sat inside a small diner waiting for their mother. Mark stood by the car. Emily returned with a bag of snacks. They exchanged a glance. The last remnants of peace could be counted in seconds. A gray van suddenly screeched to a halt. Its side door slid open. 3 men stepped out quickly. Each bore a tattoo of a wolf on his neck. Mark immediately recognized the symbol of Batasa's elite kill squad. No warning. No negotiation. Every instinct inside Mark and Emily switched to survival mode. Mark yanked the gas nozzle from the tank. 2 attackers nearest him were engulfed in flames. Screams echoed. Emily snatched a fire axe hanging nearby. She rushed forward and swung it across the head of the 3rd man. Emily kicked him hard in the side. Outside, another assassin quietly shut the fuel valve. The fire died. Mark lost his advantage. From the shadows, a silver-haired female assassin emerged. Emily did not wait. She lunged. A brutal hand-to-hand fight erupted. She struck back with a furious 3-hit combo, ended with an elbow to the temple. The silver-haired assassin dropped to the ground without a sound. Meanwhile, Mark was surrounded by 3 men. He kicked one in the knee, swept the legs of the second. The third tried to grab him, but Mark locked his neck in a hold and dropped him cold. In 10 seconds, all 3 lay unconscious on the cold pavement. When the last enemy fell, Mark ran into the diner and shouted the children's names. Ollie, Leo. They were terrified. Emily gave a single command. The family fled the blood-soaked scene. Furious, Leo said nothing. They did not yet fully understand what was happening. But right now their safety was all that mattered. After the tense and breathless escape, the car finally stopped in front of a massive iron gate covered in dust. Weeds had grown wild all around. The place was silent, as if abandoned for years. Mark looked at Emily. She gave a faint nod. Her hand trembled as she entered the code. Her birth date. The gate slowly moved, metal groaning through the still air. Before them stood an old mansion resting quietly in the deserted countryside. No one spoke. Suddenly a gunshot rang out, sharp and loud. A bird fell from the rafters. Then came steady footsteps from the shadows. An older woman stepped forward holding a smoking rifle, her eyes sharp as blades. It was Greenie, the legendary former sniper of British intelligence, and Emily's biological mother. Greenie looked directly at her daughter. No surprise, no emotion, only a calm statement. That old goat sent me pictures of the kids every month. I know everything. Emily froze. All those years she thought her mother had turned away forever. But the truth was her mother had always been watching from afar. She did not know how to react. Ollie and Leo stood still, watching the stern stranger who was now their grandmother. The air inside the house grew thick. Then a man appeared behind a curtain. He had a wild beard, wore an old pilot jacket. He was the one who had once courted Emily, and now he was living with her mother. A strange couple Emily never imagined seeing again. She was speechless. The man who once wanted to be her stepfather now truly was. Greenie did not care about her daughter's confusion. She simply said, "Anyone who makes it here is family." Mark and Emily did not let emotion slow them down. They went straight to the point. The superchip key was hidden in the basement behind the mansion. But while they confirmed the key's safety, the enemy closed in. Baron and his team had tracked the vehicle used during the escape. A drone hovered silently above the sky. Its camera scanned Emily's face. Alarms went off in CIA systems. The mansion was immediately surrounded. No one was allowed to leave. At the same time, Batasa's kill squad approached from the opposite direction. One group attacked the main gate. Another slipped through the back. The third came in through the escape tunnel. Every exit was sealed. Inside the house, they still had no idea what was happening. Mark and Emily knew at once what was coming. Mark rushed outside and looked up. A military chopper was rapidly descending. Emily quickly bolted the front door. They quickly subdued Greenie and her companion and shoved them into the center of the room. Meanwhile, Ollie and Leo were dragged from the upstairs bedroom, their hands tied, cloth stuffed in their mouths. Emily screamed in pain, but the room fell silent when a gunshot tore through the air. A man stepped through the front door. It was Peter. The one they thought was dead now stood before them, his eyes ice cold, his face calm, as if everything had gone exactly as planned. Peter walked over, extended his hand to Mark and gave a cold command. "Give me the key." Mark had no choice. He handed over the chip. Peter passed it to a short-haired female agent standing beside him. She confirmed it immediately. Authentic. No errors. Peter turned to Mark and Emily. His tone changed. "The play is over. The assassination years ago was a hoax. He had never served justice. 15 years ago, when Mark and Emily vanished with the key, he was fired from the CIA, humiliated, angry. He joined Batassa's organization in exchange for power and money, and the price was betraying everyone who once trusted him." In the kitchen, Greenie was tied to a chair, but she was no helpless old woman. Behind her chair was a secret compartment. Inside were 2 tranquilizer guns prepared long ago. Her companion gave her a silent nod. Greenie gritted her teeth and cut the ropes, slipped from the chair, crawled across the wooden floor. She pulled out the gun. 2 precise shots dropped the 2 guards instantly. No sound, no warning. She poured cooking oil at the kitchen entrance and cranked the oven to maximum heat. Another assassin stepped in unaware, slipped. His own knife drove into his shoulder. He screamed. Another came to help, but Greenie smashed a hot pan into his face. Hearing the gunfire, Mark and Emily knew the counterattack had begun. Emily broke her ropes, kicked the weapon from a nearby guard. Peter saw control slipping away. He ordered a retreat, grabbed Ollie and the chip, headed for the helicopter. Emily gave chase but was blocked. But the helicopter was already lifting off. The last hope vanished into the sky. Ollie is still wearing her smart health ring. It has GPS tracking. Emily immediately pulled out her phone. A small red dot appeared on the screen. The signal was coming from the largest shopping center in London. Without wasting a second, and with the help of Greenie and her old at CIA headquarters, Baron received the alert. He tracked the signal's origin and ordered an immediate lockdown of the entire shopping center. No one was allowed to leave. What Baron did not know was that Peter had also chosen this location to host a secret black market auction. His sole objective was to sell the super chip key to the highest bidder. Deep beneath the building, in a classified operations room, Peter stood in the center of a circle of international kingpins. His face smug, he demonstrated the terrifying power of the chip with a live test. In an instant, the entire London power grid went dark. The city was plunged into total blackout. Sirens screamed. People panicked. Chaos spread. Then he triggered the Seagate control system. The screen showed a massive wave ready to flood the city. Investors were stunned by the chip's destructive potential. The bidding skyrocketed past $250 million. Meanwhile, above the facility, Mark and Emily had infiltrated the shopping center. Due to the tight security, they had to leave all weapons behind. No one knew exactly where Ollie was being held. They split up to search. Emily went with Leo. Mark took the emergency stairs down to the basement. Inside an elevator, a group of men in suits were transporting the chip to the underground level. Mark quietly followed. When the doors opened, he launched a powerful kick. The bodyguards inside barely had time to react before Mark and Emily charged in. They had no guns, no armor, only the instinct and combat skills forged through years of life and death missions. One guard rushed at Emily. She grabbed 2 security batons from a nearby wall, swung hard, struck his head with perfect precision. He dropped instantly. Mark delivered a heavy kick to another guard's back. The man flew across the room, slammed his head into the control panel. The alarm system activated. The door sealed shut. No one could escape. Chaos exploded. Investors and crime lords panicked. They scrambled for exits that no longer existed. Peter began to panic. He dragged Ollie toward the emergency tunnel. Mark saw his daughter and gave chase, but just then someone blocked his path. It was Baron. Emily stopped as well. The standoff froze the room. Tension cracked the air. Mark and Emily expected resistance, but Baron looked at them with unwavering resolve. "I don't care about the key. I just want to save lives. Go." Without another word, he turned and threw himself into the remaining guards. His partner joined him. Together they cut through Peter's men. Mark and Emily did not wait. They ran after Peter, but by the time they reached the exit, the helicopter was already gone. Only the fading sound of its rotors echoed through the night sky. Still, they did not give up. There was one way left: the sea. At the nearby port, a white yacht had just started its engines. Waves slammed against its hull. Peter stood on deck, dragging Ollie toward the control cabin. The short-haired agent held the chip. The escape plan was in motion. The offshore floodgate had already been opened. A current was carving a hidden path to the ocean, their vanishing route. But Mark and Emily were not finished. They borrowed 2 jet skis from locals at the dock. No weapons, no backup. Only one mission. Get their daughter back. The jet skis launched across the water like bullets. Waves exploded in their wake. Gunfire ripped through the night. Emily zigzagged to avoid bullets. Mark sped forward. Within seconds they reached the yacht. Mark grabbed the railing, pulled himself aboard. Emily followed with a flip. She kicked a guard in the face. He flew into the safety net. Out cold, Mark grabbed a fire extinguisher, crushed another attacker's head. Blood streaked the white paint. In the control cabin, Peter ordered the short-haired agent to take the chip to the sub. He planned to flee before the gate closed, but faraway Greenie and her partner had discovered the escape route. In an old Navy base, the man struggled to activate the lock system. He hit the wrong switch. It jammed. Furious, he slapped the screen. Suddenly it responded. The sea gate began to close. On the yacht the fight raged. Peter was now completely unhinged. He dragged Ollie toward the escape hatch, but Emily cut him off. She pulled her daughter away. Mark blocked the other end of the corridor. Trapped, Peter raised the chip like a final threat. But Emily had no more patience. She threw a devastating punch into his face. The sound of his jaw breaking was unmistakable. He collapsed on the floor unconscious. The yacht, now unmanned, was speeding toward the closing sea gate. Emily strapped a life vest onto Ollie. Leo jumped into the sea first. Mark tried to pull Peter along, but the man awoke and struggled free. He grabbed the chip and ran. Emily kicked him off the deck. He fell just as the yacht slammed into the steel gate. An enormous explosion tore through the ocean. The vessel erupted into flames. Fire consumed the night. But the family had jumped just in time. They surfaced amid smoke and wreckage. Ollie cried uncontrollably. Emily held her tight. Mark looked to the sky. The sun rose beyond the clouds. At last the police and CIA arrived. Baron stepped off the rescue chopper. He looked at the family and gave a quiet nod. It was over. The chip was recovered. Batassa's final card was gone. He vanished like a nightmare that had passed. The next day at school the world felt whole again. Ollie scored a goal in her soccer match. Cheers echoed across the field. Mark and Emily watched from the stands. They smiled gently. No more gunfire. No more blood. Just the peace they had longed for. And just as they were about to share a kiss, Baron appeared again. On his lips was a new offer. Return to the CIA, finish what remains of Batassa's legacy. Mark looked at Emily. She said nothing, just nodded, because this time they would go back not for the mission, but for everything they wanted to protect.